Does that look good? Does that look good? I think so. I'm not gonna win no Emmy, Grammy. Which one is it? Anyway, so I don't really have an intro planned out for this yet. Hans the Savage. Where'd you come up with that name there, Hans? Well, my name is Hans. That's kind of self-explanatory. But where's the savage part play into it? Well, the savage is a reference to a book called Brave New World by... Wait, who's it by again? Hold on. Brave New World. Aldous Huxley. Written in 1932. So yeah, for those of you who don't know what Brave New World is, which I'm guessing is most people, A Brave New World is about a dystopian future where the state basically creates all people in test tubes, and then they control how they're brought up. No one gets pregnant anymore. There's no families. That's all X'd. The children are brought up being very comfortable with not family-friendly things, and the puff, and they're also trained to be in their caste. Basically, they are trained to only do their job for the state and exactly what the state wants. And so the state, the world order, I think it's called, has gotten rid of the family structure and has basically said every individual works as they should, and everyone will always be happy, always have pleasure, always feel great. And if you don't, if you ever feel anything like sadness or anger or anything that's not pleasure or happiness, then you take opioids, basically. So it's this culture hyper fixated on just instant gratification and community and individuality, basically having no bonds to any person whatsoever, void of suffering, void of responsibilities. And so in the story, there's a guy who's kind of sick of this, and him and this lady, who are the higher up in the caste system, go and they visit what's called a savage outpost. No, not outpost. Why am I so bad with words? Savage reservation for people that live with religion and family and basically all that old stuff that, guess what, we figured out doesn't work. Because if you want to be happy, you gotta be happy all the time. And there they meet this guy, John, and they bring John back. I'm horrible with names, by the way. I don't remember the main character's name and the main lady's name. And then John the Savage, as he's called in the book, becomes famous. What is going on? My dog is looking out the window at probably some birds. Yep, she definitely wants to eat birds. Anyway, John the Savage basically sees the civilized people and is basically like, I hate this. People are just have no ability to have relationships, have no ability to have high art, have no ability to actually connect with people, even though they're doing, a lot of things people would say would be connecting people, not family friendly all the time. And the main lady is just infatuated with John the Savage because he won't just get with her. he actually eventually starts talking to her about marriage, which freaks her out because marriage, being called a father, being called a mother, being pregnant, all of that is considered deplorable in this society. And eventually they get basically ousted by the higher ups. The main guy gets ostracized to an island because he doesn't fit in. And then John the Savage is forced to stay for just to be watched and see how it plays out. And he eventually ends up taking a short drop with a sudden stop. If I'm not gonna say exactly what that is. So yeah, that's where the name comes, because Hans is a derivation of Johannes, which is a derivation of John, Hans the Savage. And like, why would you pick the Savage? Well, basically, in today's day and age, we're living in a brave new world. We're living in a society that tells you to seek out pleasure, seek out ease, end all types of suffering, end all types of anything that doesn't feel good. Just end it, and if something happens, you need to just be put on pills, put on opioids, put on whatever. And the funny thing about life is, the first thing that makes sense, seek out pleasure in this case, but in any case, a lot of times in life, it seems like there should be one thing, but all of a sudden there's a counterintuitive logic to doing the opposite. And when I was thinking about this a lot, I suddenly realized that, I didn't suddenly realize, I slowly just understood that seeking out pleasure just causes people to be miserable. We're living in a society that is telling everyone to just keep pounding away at this non-family friendly pleasure. Get rid of the suffering of responsibilities. Get rid of anything and everything that makes you ache, that makes you have to deal with consequences, that makes you have to deal with anything that is slightly adverse. That's what society is pushing, and that's what society today is telling you to do. And I've realized that in order to find legitimate happiness, you need to reject that. You need to reject that notion, you need to reject that idea of constant consumption, constant pleasure, basically becoming numb to everything. And you need to actually have these responsibilities, have this hard work. This is a big turning point. Hard work is suffering. And anything that's worth doing and anything that's going to last requires hard work to create. Requires hard work in the front end with little results, a lot of suffering right away to see a great thing way down the line. And so that's basically where this idea for this channel came. Rejecting the modern society, our brave new world's idea of constant pleasure to give me happiness, and instead the idea of responsibility and hard work. The main reason I had this idea was I'm kind of in a rut in my life right now, and I wanted to change that. I wanted to stop constantly consuming media, constantly consuming pleasure, constantly consuming everything that feels and tastes and hears and smells and looks and feels good, and seek out suffering, seek out hard work. That's my other dog. I have two girls. 2 girl dogs. And I think it's something that we as a society need to start turning towards. Well, not the society, because society is going to keep telling us to do the same thing. I mean, the people that are living need to start to understand this. You need to have a strong will, a strong backbone, a strong mind to basically just keep working, keep building, keep creating, keep going forward, and not just rely on instant spurts of just meaningless gratification. And if you want to see ways that I'm doing that, I'm planning on doing that, that would be in the iCard up there. But I would give a warning to anyone that wants to do this, because in the book Brave New World, as I said, John the Savage, isn't around at the end of the book anymore. And basically, the writer Aldous Huxley, his point was that there wasn't an answer, right? Is you have to sacrifice, you either have to have freedom or happiness. But I would rebuttal to him that the happiness that is created through sacrifice of freedom isn't true happiness. It's faked and forced pleasure. It's just a constant drone. It isn't ever the joys and ecstasies of life. It isn't ever just the gratitude and the experience that life has to offer. It's just this drone of, I'm programmed to feel good, I'm programmed to feel happy. It's just, the human experience requires us to have these deep connections with each other and to get rid of that hard work of relationships, that hard work of responsibility with relationships, and that way we can talk and interact with each other, and these what they call in the story high art, these stories that help us connect, just creates a worse experience. But on the flip side, he does show that with freedom, people can abuse that, people can neglect that, people can become emotionally unstable, and that's the big point of why they switched to this society, because they wanted stability. Well, I would argue that the path is freedom, but with wisdom. Wisdom taught by your father, your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandfather, your grandfather, also your great-grandfather if you happen to know him, but basically our past. This idea that in the family unit, you should pass down wisdom to your children. You should pass down wisdom to the next generation. You should pass down the understanding that you received. Because without that, that's where you get the instability. That's where you get the issues of outbursts and anger and outrage and aggression and tearing down society and tearing down yourself, as John the Savage did in the book. He didn't have people to get past the wisdom on to use his freedom responsibly. So I wouldn't say taking away people's freedoms is gonna fix anything. Forcing yourself into this just drone won't fix anything. You have to force yourself into these hurdles, into these obstacles to actually do something. We're pumping out people that are just in this drone of constant pleasure, and they're depressed, they're anxious, they have so many issues. And the only solution we have is just keep that drone going. Eventually they're just gonna snap. I would argue against Huxley that the happiness that is created in Brave New World isn't stable at all. It creates just this numb person who needs to feel something and will lash out in the most violent way possible to feel just a little something besides that drone. And with freedom, you still have that problem of humanity, that sin, that ability to cause havoc and violence and treachery and evil, but you also have the ability to pass on how to not do that, and learn how to not do that, and learn how to use your freedom, how to use your responsibilities, how to interact, and how to overcome these obstacles. And once you get on the other side, you become this way better person. And you felt something. You interacted. You connected along the way. So yeah, this channel is me dedicating myself to be the savage, to be the one who rejects this notion that we need to sacrifice freedom for happiness, to reject the notion that true happiness is constant gratitude, constant pleasure. That is not true happiness. That is not true joy. Real happiness, real life happens at the end of giant mountains, at the top of the peak, when you finally realized what you climbed through all that pain, all that trouble, all that hardship, all that effort to just keep going. That's where true happiness lies. And if we keep believing the lie that this constant drone is true happiness, society probably will crumble. I mean, I'm not a doomsday person, but I do think that society is just gonna rot. So yeah, it's Hans the Savage signing off. I don't know what kind of outro should I do. I'll get around to it.